37, I'm talking about average time to process commercial planning applications. I have a particular interest in this, obviously. And it talks at the bottom of that section, more time spent by officers on non-planning application activity. What other activity would the planners get involved in? Is that activity that's in their remit or out with their remit?
It will be activity within the remit, and some of that will be from various broad complaints handling, in other engagement work, etc., round about in the periphery of the actual planning application, etc. So the other aspect amongst that is that we have a very small planning team that has depleting numbers and number of vacancies, so that is also added to the mix, as there's a mixture of our key planners is also one of the key managers within that section. In that sense, so we recognise that there is a challenge there. We're currently looking at that. It's featured within our trim and change review as well. So it is something that we're aware of. I would say that the planning team, for the size that they are, work extremely hard, do really good due diligence in the work in terms of servicing the planning committee as well. So I think for me, there is a reflection of the capacity and perhaps the under-resourcing within that particular section.
Page 240 now, we're talking about roads at this point. And it's just the terminology I don't understand, maybe just for me. The terminology says class roads to be considered for treatment. I'm not quite sure. Does that mean class roads that require treatment or class roads that require treatment and have been selected?
I will need to defer to my colleague in the technical aspects of that. Ian, can I bring you in? Thanks.
Yeah, so when it talks about the different classifications of road, you've got A, B, C, and unclassified, and those metrics we use are the roads that are deemed that require treatment. So that just for clarity, it's just the wording of it. It's a national comparator.
Right. So I simply substitute the words to be considered that are required.
Yeah, there's a percentage of roads that require treatment.
Yeah, page 241. The last statement and very bottom is the current level of investment will not keep the road network in a steady state. Now that's surely intolerable. So what's our way out of that?
Thank you, Councillor. And I may include Ian if he has any supplementary to the comments I give. We have reduced the roads budget in that sense, and that is only a temporary measure. There is work undergoing and we will increase. We do ebb and flow in terms of our investment in roads, depending on a number of different factors and other priorities that we have. We do maintain good standard in that sense, but we are aware that there are particular elements of our road network that is going to need more investment in the near to medium future, and that is just reflective of the state where we're currently in, and that is something we keep under review regularly in terms of when we go and look at how we make bids to the capital programme, etc., or what other investment we are able to attract in terms of how we manage our road network. I'm going to ask Ian if there's anything else he would like to add to that. Ian?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think you summarised it pretty well. It will be a struggle to keep the roads steady state, like we say, because there has been budget reductions. So the treatment interventions we'll be looking at will be lower cost, pothole patching, surface dressing programmes that are, a kind of more short-term sticking plaster, as it were, to keep the roads, free from, degradation with water and ingress and the like, but there won't be the same volume of carriageway resurfacing. We would plane out the road and resurface it, so that will have reduced. So that's the report's correctly flagging up the fact that it will be difficult to keep the roads to the steady state that they would desire. But officers are using everything we can, the different intervention techniques we can. But these will be more short-term interventions rather than a long-term solution.
Councillor, just to add to that also is a lot of it is also dependent on the weather and also how heavily the road network's utilised. You see that, I think it was mentioned earlier, in terms of around about particular developments. In that sense, if there's heavy fleet in particular areas, and that's also something that we will also connect in with our planning arrangements in that sense for any private developers that are operating, how we utilise some of that to make investments into our road network as well.
Yeah, see, my reading of that was fatalistic, that if you couldn't maintain it in its current relatively imperfect state, that meant that it's just going to get worse. Ultimately, ad infinitum, presumably that is not tolerable. So is there a solution to that? I didn't quite catch everything Ian said, because I don't hear that too well. So maybe you covered that, but I'm just concerned, is there a way out of this?
There is, and part of it is about how we make use of the capital programme that we have available to us, and in that sense we will make bids into that in terms of future needs. In that sense, that Ian's team make sure that we keep a note of the condition of the roads, we prioritise where there needs to be work done in it. We may need to, at particular points, do, as he made reference, that patch approach in short term, as we think to some more medium term further developments in that sense. So we do keep an eye on it in that sense, but it would be wrong for us not to highlight that if we don't invest in our roads, then there will be challenges in the future.
Okay, thanks. One more thing, find it. That's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions, Brenda? Thank you. Thanks very much. Happy to move the paper. I think you gave us a fair bit of detail there, which was great to be able to kind of look into the scrutiny of it. And it's good to see kind of progress in different areas. But for me, it's really interesting to see some of the council decisions coming into action in the report, which is really positive. So it's good for us to see this, and we recognise also this is 23-24, so obviously there'll be much more updated since then. But thanks for all your work on it, and much appreciated. Okay, so happy to move. Anyone happy to second? Councillor Coyne. Paper's open to debate. Would you like to debate the paper? No. Okay, we're happy to note the paper.
Yep.
Yeah, is everybody happy to continue the last two reading papers? Yeah. Thank you. So item 12 is the public body's climate change report duty, and that is going to be presented by Lawrence Hunter. Thanks, Lawrence.
Afternoon, folks. I'd like to report this report. This report to board members of the outcome of an internal audit process recently carried out by the Council of Public Body Climate Change duties out on Oh, sorry. Is that better? Oh, yeah. So this is an internal audit review of the Council's Public Body Climate Change Duties Annual Report 23-24, and it sets out the actions that have been taken to address issues that were raised in the audit process. The Climate Change Scotland Order requires public bodies to report annually under compliance with Section 44 of the Climate Change Scotland Act 2009. Prior to submitting our annual report, our internal audit assesses reporting arrangements and the accuracy of the information that's been provided to the body. Following this year's assessment, the internal audit provided 6 recommendations and awarded a limited assurance. The recommendations were that we develop a reporting timetable, which has now been completed and agreed by our internal audit team. The provision of a central record to hold information to be overseen by the Climate Emergency Working Group. That has been provided. We have a central folder where the officers, where the internal audit can find the officers' reports. And the Climate Emergency Working Group sees this as an agenda item at every meeting. We were asked to carry out a review of the Council travel plan and approval by Council within an appropriate time frame. The service responsible for that is doing this. The waste emission figures are to be consistently compiled and provided, which we are doing. We were asked to investigate a possible tool to assist services to capture the data. This obviously will be dependent on our resources and the finance to actually do and introduce this. And we were asked that we consider that all of the Council's carbon reduction projects should involve a calculation of potential carbon savings, which we have asked services to provide. On a positive note, there has been significant progress being made in response to the climate emergency declared by Council in August 2022. The Council's greenhouse gas emissions are continuing to reduce. An internal strategic energy management group has been established to assist in the delivery of the Council's local heat and energy efficiency strategy. A strategic environmental assessment of our climate change strategy and our draft pollinator strategy has been completed. We are continuing to develop our Climate Emergency Action Plan, which is reviewed by the Climate Emergency Working Group and also passed on to the Climate Emergency Board to review and comment on. The Climate Emergency Board continues to meet quarterly to create and implement and own annual greenhouse gas emission targets for the Council's own operations and its wider areas. And we are working towards embedding the CAP, the Climate Emergency Action Plan, into Pintana for easier input by various services. Okay.
Sorry, so that was me just screwing my eyes up looking at the writing. Okay, we'll to questions, Councillor Forson.
Alderman's, can you put your mic up?
Thanks. The question I've got about is the emissions targets and project sections 3. Now, the outcome of the internal audit is talking about consistency in the returns that are being, the way that information is collated and the returns that are being put in there, because it is inconsistent. If you look at it from 2017 up to 23-24, we jump around a fair bit and it's jumped up again for last year. So the recommendation is that waste figures from council operations must be consistently compiled and included in future returns. I'm just wondering what we're doing to ensure that consistency in this area.
Having spoken to waste colleagues, one of the challenges for the waste emission figures is they are only produced nationally by October. In the previous year, they weren't included, and that was to do with actually a lack of resources in the team to actually be able to provide them. They were subsequently provided to the Scottish Sustainability Network, so they knew them after the event. But that's the reason that that particular year they weren't included. But we are aiming to ensure that that target is met this year, that we incorporate into it. But it is one of the constraints that we have. Sometimes the actual data doesn't come to us till much later in the year. So that's been the problem. But waste have taken note of that.
Could I ask, are we doing carbon budgeting across services in the council, like where we set a budget for our carbon emissions? It's been done in a lot of organisations now, where they basically say, here's what we can live with in terms of carbon, and then we look at how we have achieved against that. Have we got a sort of process similar to that in the council?
It's quite complex, and many of the local authorities have actually introduced that, have actually software and specialist individual bodies who will actually carry that out. We don't have that at present, but the Climate Emergency Board will have reports from the various sections on their targets, on their own individual targets, and how we move forward. There would be an ambition to move towards that, but it's all about resources and funding to take that forward.
Any other questions? Councillor Coyne?
Technical question, Lawrence. What are the three scopes? So page 216 is a wee table there, and I was looking at it, I haven't looked exhaustively, but I couldn't find out a definition for the three scopes.
So this moment I have was one of the three scopes of theirs, 1, 2, 3.
Hold on a moment. There are three scopes. If you bear with me, I'll give you the official definitions. So we get scope 1 refers to gas, LPG, fuel, the fuel oil, diesel and biomass. Scope 2 refers to grid electricity, and scope 3 refers to water treatment and grid electricity.
Water treatment, what was the last one?
Water treatment and grid electricity.
What was it? 2 was grid.
Scope 2 was purely just grid electricity.
Councillor, we would be happy to circulate the definition if that would be helpful. We'd be happy to circulate the definition if that would be helpful.
That make it easier, thanks. Yeah, and on the same page, section 3. Oh, thank you. Same page, section 3.8, it says, the last sentence, it is unclear why the council has decided not to use the CFPR tool to confirm their figures. Is it now clear?
It was made clear to internal audit. We were asked that question. I subsequently contacted the SSN, Scottish Sustainability Network, to ask them about this. It's not mandated to use that tool, and they also flagged up to us it's outdated. The actual report that we actually have to put the elements into includes conversions which are built into the report. And as I said, they specified the tool's outdated and it's not mandatory to use. That was reported back to internal audit.
Thanks, Lawrence, that answers that perfectly. And over the page to page 264, the tail end of point 13. Further investigation should be undertaken to develop a tool that can assist the services. Has that happened? Has further investigation taken place?
As mentioned in the recommendation,
As mentioned in the recommendations, we are looking at options that are available. But what we have identified is to bring in that software could be very expensive and quite resource hungry. We're looking within the network to look to see what other authorities have brought in, but we're working with other organisations, other local authorities that have much more resources to develop this and also much more money to take it forward. So it will be a challenge. It's one that's been recognised and reported back to internal audit that we will continue to look. We'll try and find a cost-effective solution, but it may create challenges because of resources and overall cost.
Thanks. And same page, next section. Last sentence, recommending that the council's carbon reduction projects should involve blah, blah, blah. I just wonder what the effect of not following the recommendation. Is that simply a lowering of the grade of assurance, or are there further implications of not following that?
it may be
It may be a case of reducing the confirmation, because within this report, when we're going to internal audit, what we're doing is trying to back up that information that we've got. If we don't have the tools that are there and we can't prove that that's there, it makes it weaker. But all services are attempting with any new project that comes up to look to see how they can incorporate and establish what the carbon reductions will be. And through the Climate Emergency Working Group and the Climate Emergency Board, we are attempting to help staff to actually do it. The Energy and Sustainability team are actually doing more of a working with the teams and going in. We've already started going around all the teams, looking at the public bodies report already, and trying to do as much reviewing where the good points were, where we could do better. We've already started that. The one challenge that we do have is that we don't fully know until June, July, what the report will look like. It may change, and there has been talk, has been afforded to us by the SSN, that there may be changes in reporting format. So we can work based on what was there previously, but we may see further changes in June, July.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for that. A lot of detailed information, which was great. Happy to move the paper. I mean, I'm glad to see that you're sort of putting a lot of actions in place and trying to move things forward, but also recognising the challenges and getting that. I mean, I know it must be really challenging money-wise to get these kind of packages in place so that you can take forward the scrutiny. I suppose as things become more in the public eye, they become more expensive, so it's a challenge. But I think it'd be good to move towards something like that in the future, really doing an audit of our carbon. But no, I think this is one we'll keep an eye on because of the internal audit recommendations moving forward, just to see how we're progressing with that. But no, thank you very much for this report. Happy to move. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Earl? Okay, we're happy to note the paper. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, debate. Did everyone want to debate the paper? No. Shouldn't have taken that idea for you, but yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we're on to the final item on the agenda, which is the Environmental Health Official Food Control Progress Report. And that is Dawn Brisbane who will be presenting the paper. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to present an overview and an update to the Council's official food control service plan, which was submitted to Food Standards Scotland. It's recommended that the committee don't comment on and challenge the performance of the Council's food law regulation service, taking into account the challenges the team has faced with staff shortages and increased workload, not only for food law but also for other areas of environmental health. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
I've got one.
Okay.
Thanks. It says in here, in preparing and updating this policy, due regard, etc., is written in there. What I'm concerned about is when we present with a policy that's been updated, it's actually a lot easier for us if we have the text that's been changed or is new is highlighted in some way. Then because we don't need to read the whole policy then. We just need to put it's the changes we're being asked to accept because we've already accepted the policy at some earlier point. So it'll be hugely helpful to our pressed elected members if you could do that. When a policy changes, let's see the changes. Okay. So my obvious question is what major changes were there?
The main changes were the number of businesses inspected compared to the table that was initially on the service plan.
Is it page 298 looking at?
Yes. Back to what was in the service plan and predicted, some of these numbers have changed. That could be due to a number of businesses closing, cease trading, and new businesses being operational. Also, the banding could have changed if we'd been out to a premises that was currently banded a C and then has been changed to a D. That increases the frequency of inspections and therefore increases the number of the Ds in that band.
In fairness, that's really a reporting change rather than a policy change. Is the policy substantially the same then? Or have you changed something fundamental in the way you approach this whole science?
No, the policy hasn't changed. It was just to update you with where we're at in the progress of what was proposed with regard to number of visits and the percentage that we would hope to complete and comply with within this current year. And these figures are up to the end of December.
That's fine, thanks for that. I always try to remember what, and I know that you deprioritise the areas where there's the lowest risk. Again, just for me, and the four are 2B, 2C, and 3B and 3C. What kind of practices of businesses are those, if you have that to hand? Sorry.
Yes, I think it was added in as an attachment. I think there was last year you looked for more clarification, so this year I've added in the ladder from the food law rating system, which describes the types of businesses that fall in each group. Is that at the very end?
81.
81. Oh, you're good at that. Dusty one. I've seen you before somewhere.
We also included the compliance matrix, which gives further definition and shows the compliance matrix that we need to take into account when scoring businesses after each inspection.
That's great. Thanks very much. No problem. 3, 2, 1.
I was just going to, and I think I ask you this every year as well, Dawn, to be honest, but on the slightly different framed question, in table 2 where it says other food law work out with inspection programme, and it's come up with again, you know, food incidents, food poisonings, food alerts, which I presume we're always getting alerts out about issues with supermarkets, food and things like that. But if you have an alert out with the inspection programme of food poisoning, or would you then go and do further investigations into those establishments to see if there was anything to be concerned about?
Yes, we do. We've actually had 3 incidents just since April from Food Standards Scotland. We've had counterfeit alcohol reported nationally, and each local authority has to go and inspect premises. And also we've had contamination of food products with peanuts that wasn't displayed on the labelling. So again, we had to get press involved, get information out to the public, mail shots, visits. Another one was food being sold that contained ingredients not permitted to be sold in the UK. So we had to go and seize a lot of food as well. So that does take up a lot of officers' time. We do have reactive work where there's a complaint from a member of the public about a business, either their practices or saying that they've eaten something and they've been unwell after it. And we'd always visit those premises and also follow up any food poisoning, confirm food poisoning cases that we receive from the Forth Valley Health Board.
That's good. So I suppose a lot of your work will be in social media as well then, making the public aware.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's my question. Anybody else got any questions? No. Well, thanks very much. Sorry it's not been more questions. I think your reports are so comprehensive that we get so much information from them that, you know, there's not a lot more for us to ask. But so thank you very much. I'm happy to move the report. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Coyne, and open to debate. No? Okay, we're happy to note the paper? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And that is the end of the meeting. Thank you everyone for attending today, and you're free to go.